Hello, I'm Michael Topham and welcome to this second advanced cleaning and cloning video tutorial. In the first cleaning video, we took a look at the main three retouching tools in Elements, including the spot healing brush, and the mighty clone stamp tool. We tidied up a shot that had a lot of distractions and turned it into a much cleaner, smarter looking image. In this video, I'm going to show you an advanced cloning technique that is going to be really useful to learn, and it can prevent you damaging any pixels that you want to keep intact, and it will also help you speed up the way in which you clone and heal your images. Right then, let's load up the image that we're going to be working with in this tutorial, which is emily.jpg. So let's just load that up, and taking a look at the image, we can see that there are some noticeable railings behind the model on the bridge that I'd quite like to remove and clone out. But if I zoom in using Ctrl and Plus and move through the image with my hand tool and take a look at my main subject, we can see that it's going to entail some highly detailed cloning work up against these detailed edges. So in the toolbox, I've got the clone stamp tool selected, and if I began cloning as I normally would by holding down the Alt key and sampling the pixels that I want to use for replacement by holding down the Alt key and then brushing up against the model, you can see that it's very easy to damage unwanted pixels, especially if we use a too large a brush. So how can we clone up against the edge of a model here in confidence? Well, this is where selections come in, and we can use selections when we're cloning to prevent us damaging any areas that we don't want to. Using selections when we're cloning is a bit like putting a barrier up. You can clone anywhere inside the selection like you normally would, but it doesn't allow you to go past the edge of the marching ants. So let's just drag in my undo history here and take a few steps back to the original image. So let's just drag that out the way, and I'm just going to drag in my layers palette, and let's create a layer to work on by going up to layer and going down to duplicate layer, and I'm going to create this new layer and give it the new name cleaning, and then I'm going to hit OK. The best way of seeing how selections are used when we're cloning is in practice. So I'm going to start on a basic area in this image to begin with, over on the right hand side. So let's just move through the image with the hand tool, and let's zoom in a little bit as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by removing this railing here that is just behind the bridge, and we're going to be using selections, so I need to change from the clone stamp tool over to the polygonal lasso tool. So with the polygonal lasso tool selected, I'm going to run it along the top of the bridge here, and I'm just running that along very carefully, and then when you get past the railing there, I'm just going to continue along a little bit further, and then I can just join up the selection, as this is the area that we're concentrating on for now. So just working my way around, let's just join up the selection, and it's a really good idea just to feather this selection by a single pixel, which will prevent you seeing a hard edge when you deselect the marching ants after the cloning has been completed. I'm going to go up to select and down to feather, type in a feather radius of 1 pixel and hit OK. With the preparation work done in this area, we're now ready to start cloning as we normally would. So back over to the toolbox, let's pick out the clone stamp tool, let's go up into the options bar. I think I want a slightly softer brush, so I'm going to hit the shift and the left square bracket key, and we're going to go for a size of around 45 pixels for now. That'll be fine, and we'll brush with 100% opacity. Holding down the Alt key, we can sample the pixels that we want to use for replacement, and I'm going to sample them just outside the selection edge here, and then I can start brushing away, and you can see there that the selection is actually preventing me damaging any of those brickwork pixels. If I move the cursor down a little bit further, you can see there that I'm not actually damaging the brickwork in any way at all. The selection is working like a barrier. So just as I normally would when I'm cloning, I'm going to hold down the Alt key again and take a new sample point, and then I'm just going to work up a little bit further and start removing the rest of this railing. There we go, that's looking pretty good. Using selections when you're cloning is a really neat trick, and it's ever so simple but ever so effective. So let's see how we can use the same technique to tidy up a slightly more difficult area in this image. So I'm just going to move across to the left of the image a little bit, hit Ctrl and D to deselect those marching ants, and what we're going to do here is we're going to use the same technique. We're going to make a selection around the outside of the model here, around the hair here, and then we're going to use the selection to prevent us damaging any of the hair pixels. Moving into the toolbox, I'm going to change from the clone stamp tool over to the polygonal lasso tool, or you may want to use the lasso tool, and I'm going to make a selection around the model's head. Now this needs to be a very detailed selection. It's going to take me a minute or two to do, so I'll rejoin you once I've done that. So here we go, I've just used the lasso tool, I've just run it around the model there. Let's just zoom in and take a look at the selection that I've made. I've just used the lasso tool, just running that around the model's hair and just down the other side, and then I've joined up the selection so we can see the marching ants. So we're going to use this selection as a barrier to prevent us doing any damage to the hair pixels. So I'm going to change the lasso tool for the clone stamp tool, and we need to set up the clone stamp tool now. By going up into the options bar, I'm just going to increase the brush size a little bit, up to about 55 or 60 pixels, and I'm going to keep the opacity set to 100%. Zooming back in, I'm going to hold down the Alt key, and I'm going to sample the pixels that I want to use, and just watch how that selection is going to work like a barrier, and it's going to actually prevent me damaging the edge of the hair there. That is fantastic. Let's just move up a little bit further and work our way around the image. Holding down Alt, taking a sample of the pixels I want to use, just brushing up against that selection, and we're not actually damaging any of those hair pixels. We can just start moving through the image all the way around, just taking frequent sample points as we go. If you're feeling confident with your cloning and you think that you've used the selection to its full effect, you can deselect the marching ants by hitting Ctrl and D, and then you can zoom back into the image and just finish off getting rid of the rest of the railings. So going through, I'm just going to finish this area off, and it's going to take me quite a few minutes to do. Moving down the left hand side and zooming in, you can see how the selection has prevented us damaging any of those hair pixels. I'm really pleased with that selection that I made and the cloning that I'm carrying out. Now that you've seen how I'm going to use selections as barriers to prevent me cloning any areas that I don't want to, I'm going to continue cloning the railings out of this image, and I should think that's probably going to take me about 10 or 15 minutes to do with the clone stamp tool. So to save a bit of time, I'm going to fast forward and reveal the final result. So this is the final cloned image. I created another selection down the back of the model's dress, so I could clone the brick pixels from the other side of the bridge up against the selection. So the selection that I made was along the edge here, just running it up there, and then I joined it up, and I selected pixels from the other side of the bridge, and then painted and brushed with the clone stamp tool up against the selection to prevent any damage to the dress. So let's just zoom out now and see the final retouched image. There we are. You can see that I've actually removed all of those railings. It did take me about 20 minutes or so to do, but I'm really pleased with the result. If you're feeling adventurous and would like a cloning challenge, make sure you load the file emily.jpg from the Start Images folder on the CD and see how you get on cloning out the railings. If you remember the advanced technique of using selections, it'll actually be a lot quicker to do than you might think. I hope you've enjoyed the 2 cleaning and cloning videos this month that are part of the Fast Track Photoshop and Elements feature in the magazine. Be sure to check out Kingsley Singleton's video next that reveals how to improve the clarity and sharpness in your images, which is naturally done towards the end of the image editing process. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.